Good evening and welcome to Skyline's first episode tonight. I'm Driti Atri. Well, let's begin with a question that millions of Indians living in America, they're asking themselves. Is the American dream becoming harder to achieve? Ladies and gentlemen, an Indian professional loses his job and watches his entire family reunion collapse. AI is replacing workers faster than anybody ever expected. Senior tech professionals, they are struggling to find jobs. Companies are laying off thousands, while asking the employees to adapt to a future powered by machines. And at the very same time, robo-taxis are preparing to hit the streets, changing the way people travel forever. And if all that wasn't enough, another Indian on H-1B visa is now seriously considering packing his bags and returning home. These stories, they all seem pretty different, but they are not. They all are connected by one powerful theme. The world of work is changing faster than anybody ever imagined. So let's start with it. In the first segment, imagine spending years studying, getting a master's degree, earning an MBA, landing a job in America, winning the H-1B lottery and building a life that millions dream about. That's perfect. But then one day, everything is thrown into uncertainty. And that is exactly what happened to an Indian financial analyst who is living in America. Well, for 3 months, he has been unemployed. 3 months of applications, 3 months of interviews, 3 months of rejection. But according to him, losing the job, it wasn't even the hardest part. The hardest part here, it was what happened next. Well, his wife, she was in India and she had applied for an H-4 dependent visa after his H-1B extension. The plan was simple: finally reunite after nearly 2 years apart. Finally live together. Finally stop counting time zones. And then came the answer: rejected. Just one word. And suddenly the future that they had planned, it disappeared. Can you imagine sitting alone in an apartment every day, sending out resumes, checking emails, waiting for calls, while knowing that your spouse is thousands of kilometers away? Well, that emotional burden, it is something many visa holders do understand. For years, Indians have viewed the H-1B visa as a ticket to stability. But stories like this, they reveal something different here. Basically, a side filled with uncertainties, a side filled with loneliness, a side where one job loss, it can change everything. Now, this particular man, he's asking a question that thousands of Indians are quietly asking. Should I just come back home or not? But this is not just one man's story. Well, across America, technology is now creating a completely new job crisis. And let's award artificial intelligence, which is right at the center of it. For years, experts, they told us that AI would change the world. Well, the future has arrived, and many workers are not celebrating it. They are worried. According to the new report, AI has become one of the biggest reasons that companies are giving for layoffs in America. Can you think about that? It's not a recession. It's not inflation, not a pandemic. Artificial intelligence. In fact, if we talk about stats, in just 5 months this year, nearly 87,700 job cuts have been linked to the AI-related changes. Now that number, it is already higher than the entire previous year. The technology sector, it has been hit the hardest. More than 1 lakh jobs has just disappeared from the US market. Thousands of workers, they woke up one morning with a job and they went to sleep wondering what happens next. Companies say that they are investing heavily in AI infrastructure, automation, efficiency, cost reduction. In simple terms, well, machines can now do the same job faster and cheaper, and businesses are taking a note. The problem is that here, the workers, they are being forced to adapt faster than ever before. Well, the jobs, they are not disappearing completely though, they are changing. And many people, they are struggling to keep up. The message from corporate America, it is becoming clearer. Learn AI, work with AI, or risk being left out. And for experienced professionals, the whole situation, it is becoming even more complicated. Because let's be honest, losing a job is one thing and trying to find another one, it is becoming a completely different challenge. Can you imagine spending 20 years? Yes, 20 years building a career. In fact, waking up every single morning, managing your team, leading projects, and becoming an expert in your field. And then suddenly discovering that experience alone, it is no longer enough. That's right. That is what many mid-level and senior technology professionals they are facing today. Many have been laid off, many are searching, many are waiting, but the jobs that they were qualified for, that seems to be disappearing. In fact, the experts in the industries, they say that companies are increasingly using AI tools. In fact, tasks that once required multiple employees can now be completed by fewer people. As a result, experienced professionals, they are finding very hard to adapt. Some are becoming consultants, some are joining the gig economy, some are teaching, some are freelancing, and some are trying to start business of their own. The fear is growing because for years people believed that seniority, it means security. Now, that assumption, it is being challenged. Even highly skilled professionals, they are discovering that job security, it is no longer guaranteed. That uncertainty, it is pushing many people towards a completely different path. Now, if companies, they won't hire them, why not build something themselves, right? And that brings us to our next fascinating trend that is emerging in Silicon Valley, where being laid off, it is no longer seen as the end of the road. Now, for many people, it is a motivation. It is becoming the beginning of a new journey. Now, picture this. A truck enters Meta headquarters. On its giant screen appears a shocking message. Fired? Start a company before lunch. Well, it sounds unbelievable, right? But yes, it happened. And it perfectly captures Silicon Valley's very new trend. A growing number of workers are using AI not to find jobs, but to create businesses. In fact, one entrepreneur believes that AI can help one person to do the work of an entire company. Her platform, it uses an AI executive, AI manager, AI assistant, and AI planner. The goal is to allow ordinary people to launch businesses without massive team. Can you think about how strange that sounds? The same AI that is helping eliminate jobs, it is also helping create new businesses. Well, this is the paradox of AI revolution here, ladies and gentlemen. Some people see danger, others, they see opportunity. Some are losing jobs, others are launching companies. Silicon Valley is betting that the future belongs to people who can work alongside intelligent machines rather than compete against them. Wait. But AI isn't just changing the offices and boardrooms here. It is preparing to transform something millions of us, we just use every single day. Yes, here we are talking about Uber. Can you imagine opening Uber, booking your ride, walking outside and discovering that there is no driver, no conversation, no steering wheel moment, just a car driving itself? That future is coming to London, by the way. Uber and British technology companies, they are preparing to launch robo-taxis powered entirely by artificial intelligence. Well, for the very first time, ordinary passengers, they will be able to call an autonomous vehicle using an app. The vehicle will navigate the traffic, handle intersections, avoid any obstacle and take the passenger very safely to their destination. Can you think about how extraordinary that is? Now, for more than a century maybe, transportation depended on human drivers. Now machines are learning to do it themselves. Here supporters say that this technology, it will improve safety, reduce the cost and make transportation more efficient. Now let's flip the coin. Critics worry about accidents, reliability and the future of driving jobs. But one thing is definitely certain. While the race towards automation, it is accelerating. As technology moves forward, workers everywhere are asking difficult questions. Where do humans fit into this new economy? Because many workers are already feeling the pressure here. And nowhere is that pressure more visible than in America's manufacturing sector. Ladies and gentlemen, for decades, manufacturing jobs, they represented stability, a steady paycheck, a reliable future. But today, even those jobs are under a lot of pressure. Whirlpool, it has announced another round of layoffs in Iowa. 100 more workers will lose their job. Sadly, the latest cuts that bring total job losses close to 900. Now, for a small community, that number, that is devastating because when a factory cuts jobs, the impact, it spreads far beyond the factory gates. Restaurants suffer, jobs suffer, in fact, shops suffer, schools suffer, entire communities feel the consequences. Company executives, they blame weak demand. Unicorn, they blame corporate decision. Workers are left wondering that who is right. But for the families affected by layoffs, the debate, it hardly matters. What matters is paying bill, supporting children, finding a new opportunity. It is another reminder that economic uncertainty, it is not limited to one industry now. It is spreading faster, and that too across multiple sectors, affecting families who once believed that their jobs were secured. And for Indians living in America, these developments are impossible to ignore. Which brings us to the question that many skilled professionals are now asking themselves. Is it time to come home? Well, for decades, moving to America symbolized success, a better salary, a better future, a better life abroad. Millions of Indians, they followed that dream. And many succeeded too. But in today's reality, that looks completely different. Layoffs are rising, visa uncertainty continues, AI is changing workplaces, competition is intensifying, and many professionals, they are being forced to rethink their plans. Well, the Indian financial analyst we discussed earlier, it is now considering returning home. Not because he failed, but because he gave up. But because life circumstances, they have changed, and perhaps that is the biggest lesson from tonight's stories. Success abroad is no longer guaranteed. The rules are changing, the workplace is changing, technology is changing, the world is changing. Now, for some people, AI represents opportunity, but for others, it represents uncertainty. For some, America, it remains a land of dream. For others, it is becoming a place filled with difficult choices. But one thing is definitely clear: the future belongs to those who adapt, those who learn, and those who evolve. Because whether you live in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Silicon Valley, or New York, the AI revolution that is no longer coming, it is definitely already there. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's Skyline. I am Driti Atri, and there is just one takeaway from tonight's show. And it is this: the future of work is being rewritten before your eyes. The question is no longer whether AI will change our lives or not. The question is, how prepared are we for that change? Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.